It's time for another musical interlude. Let's get started. Talking with people with music in their genes, their blood, and in their soul. You are watching Musical Interlude. Hi, and welcome to another episode of Musical Interlude. Today, my guests are Alex Jinks and Alex Russell Gaines, two of the four members of Shiffley. Let's get this show started. All right, so when would you say your earliest childhood memory when you realized there was some type of talent of music?
I can go first with that one. I think I was I was like five, and so I come from a family of musicians. My uh, grandfather was a music teacher. Like all four grandparents played instruments. My dad is a music teacher. He just retired a few years ago. My mom is an organist. Um, she's semi-retired. So I kind of grew up with music all the time in the house. We do these things that I didn't realize weren't normal until I got out in public. Like we'd go to friendlies and we'd sing happy birthday in 5-part harmony and whatever and all this stuff. And the waitress would come over and say, "Do you guys want a job?" And we'd all laugh and they'd be like, "No, but
As a
seriously."
kid, it was very impressive. Like as just one of Alex's friends before we were in a band.
Yeah. So like I think, growing up around that, I feel like you kind of get like immersed in it, right? And so we had a piano at the house and I would like try to play the beginning of Fear Release. I heard it somewhere and I thought it sounded cool when I was five. And I was like, "Mom, I want to learn how to play that." And she said, "Well, you're gonna have to get piano lessons." So I took piano lessons with my Oma, my grandmother, her mom, who lived nearby. And from the time I was six until the time I graduated high school and went to college. So, talent, maybe not so much, but I think just a fascination with it, with music and with playing and expressing myself that way, I think was pretty early for me.
Yeah, and for me, it was also well, I guess around five. My grandfather basically he had all of us. He was a violinist himself, a very talented violinist in his own right. He'd have all of his grandkids play an instrument. So I took up the violin at that age. I didn't appreciate it until high school, though, when it really became uh, sort of like all of my friends were just from orchestra and from band and everything. And like Jenks is saying, it sort of just became my my world at the time. Um, I'd say around the same time in high school, that's when I first picked up a bass guitar, and from there, sort of pivoted my interests as I was listening to music. We both went to school for classical, me for composition, Jenks for trombone performance. Um, but always we would always look forward to coming home and playing in the band together.
Yeah.
And it was sort of an escape outside of the classroom, at least for the two of us, the ones who were studying it. The other two band members who aren't here, Brian and Sean, they aren't classically trained, but they really are talented and they really feel it. They really
Yeah.
Sean on
Yeah.
the guitar, Brian on the bass, on the drums. Really, they picked it up very intuitively, and in many ways, they're the the core of the performance and the feel of the group.
Yeah. Yeah. I would agree with that. They're really, really good studio musicians, which is, I think, rare to find, even with people who are trained, trained or, went to school for it. It's tough to find that where it's so natural for them.
Cool. So my next question, which I'm not sure which question to ask first, I'm going to ask them both because I don't know the order that this happened in your life. But first, when did you decide that this was definitely something you were going to do as a profession? And when did the band meet? Did the band meet first and you did it just for fun and then you decided to make it a profession? Or did you know for sure this was something you were going to do and you created the band because of it?
That's a good
Um,
question.
yeah, so we'd always played together. Like we all went to high school together, with the exception of Sean, who we found on Craigslist in high school to play music. We played all sorts of different genres, all sorts of different combinations of the four of us in different bands prior to Shiffley. But it wasn't until that space of going away to college, at least for me, that I started to really get into songwriting and having that space to write the songs. And then in the summer and in the winter break coming home and gathering my best friends up and trying to hash them out and seeing what they think and what they could add to it. That's where it sort of came together. So at first it was definitely all about passion. But as we started getting closer to graduation, and the reality of, are we going to continue with school for the two of us to grad school for performance to go into the classical space?
Right.
What do we want out of our musical lives? And at least for the two of us, it made the most sense to pursue the band more seriously.
Yeah, I think I had more fun playing on stage with the four of them, you know, doing our own music than I ever had playing trombone repertoire for, you know, a bunch of educated folk or whatever, you know, a bunch of these other classically trained people. You know, they're fun in their own right for sure, but I think there's something that's like totally different about playing live. You know, I think doing music professionally probably was something that both Alex and I had thought about doing. You know, initially I went for music ed, and Alex was always on the composition track, but learning about music, teaching music, sharing music with people was always something that we wanted to do professionally. But I think the band really grew through college to the point where we decided not to pursue the classical side for ourselves and take what we learned and apply it for band music.
Yeah, I feel like at some point along the way we decided, you know, if we are going to have a life in music, this is probably our best shot.
Yeah.
And that was a really cool feeling, given that we built it up by ourselves.
Yeah, definitely.
So when you first began, did you wing everything, or did you know exactly what you needed to do to become a professional musician?
We still don't know what we're doing to some extent, at least in the college age of the band. And I'd say we didn't really take it seriously until after we graduated, even though we were playing during college, but all through mess ups, just learning through mess ups, through trusting the wrong people. But we had to trust somebody, and in trusting, we found a good team too. We met good people, we met bad people. All of that led to us learning and where we're at today. And it was a necessary step.
Definitely. So yeah, winging it is 100% we're all about. We'd like to do less winging, but
there's no textbook, unfortunately, to follow for us.
Yeah. And as soon as there is one, it's the rules are going to be different. You know, it's just like it's always, I think it's like a changing environment, which is exciting, right? Like it's, you know, trying to figure out how to get your music heard in a place where everybody's doing the exact same thing and the formula gets changed every release cycle. You know, it's fun for sure, but it's different.
And especially in being a rock band, and knowing that sort of like the zeitgeist is behind like rap and behind pop music and these different genres, we really have to be creative if we're going to make this work. And we're always aware of that.
How, describe the name of the band. How did you all vote on that?
So Shiffley, we wanted something that sort of sounded like a last name. I think that we felt that would stick better. It would, if you searched it, we wanted something to be the only thing that would come up. I draw comics outside of the band, and along with a friend of all of ours, and one of our characters was named Shiffley. He was sort of this sleazy car salesman type. And aside from phonetically liking the vibe of the name, we thought that whole sleazy car salesman thing ethos is something that we have to take to this. And sometimes in selling ourselves, we feel like that sleazy car salesman.
I like that. It's funny you say that, because one of the things I do tell entrepreneurs when I'm mentoring them is, when you come up with the name, search it online and make sure you're the only one, because if you use something like Hope, it's going to be hard for people to find you. So you definitely want a name that, without a shadow of a doubt, they're gonna see you.
Yeah.
So
you get like the built-in, everybody's always like, what was that? So you get to say the name twice every time, which is great. And spell it for them, because it's the only way they're going to find it.
I didn't realize we're both wearing our gear. We didn't plan that. Have our outfits, I guess, so it's not that unlikely.
Awesome. I like the green one. It looks like a, what do you call it, Christmas?
Yeah, it's a Christmas design.
Oh, okay.
We used to do a shift miss show every winter break before we went back to school. At the fall semester, we'd always do shift miss, and you know, we'll bring it back when everybody can get together again. It's like like a holiday show around it. So we did the sweaters as part of that.
Awesome. So please excuse my ignorance. I know a lot about classic rock, punk rock. I don't know a lot about punk rock, but I've heard of punk rock. I've heard of alternative rock and a few others. I have never heard of synth rock. So please tell me, what is that?
The synth player, I think Alex is best positioned to answer that.
Sure. It's like if rock's nerdy cousin decided to play with it. That's how you get synth rock. It's basically, it kind of takes its root from like a bunch of different genres of rock, right? It kind of depends on what you're going to do, but I think it kind of evolved out of like the 80s had pop rock, like Hall and Oates and all that kind of milieu, whatever. And the synth just became incorporated into the kind of modern rock band, where you used to just be an organ. Then you had, people like Radiohead, where they put out their album, was it Kid A, I think, which was like the song was led by a Fender Rhodes. You had Van Halen with Jump. That was like the first time a synth had like a hook in a rock song. So it's really, it's an evolution of rock. It's rock music with synths. It's rock with extra color that, you don't have to buy a ton of real estate to get a giant pedal board in order to achieve. You can do it all with a laptop or with a few synthesizers.
And we like to treat it as like a 4-piece rock band. We like to treat it like a classic rock band where the lead guitarist is Jenks on synth. I think that's the defining characteristic.
Cool.
That's like,
go ahead. No, go ahead.
Oh, I said that's why he's the composer. He can boil that down into something very easy to understand. Talking about milieu.
Yeah.
Getting all hoity-toity.
So explain Gimme. Who wrote it? What was the inspiration, or who was the inspiration behind the song? And talk about the making of the song.
Sure. So I wrote the song at a time, a very productive time. I actually wrote the song all within one day, which is pretty unlikely for me. I'll generally take a month or so to write a full song. But this one just sort of hit me one day. The mood was right, I guess. It's a song about selfishness. So it's about like someone who just wants everything handed to them, including love handed to him the right way. And I'll often write songs that are sort of self-criticisms. I'll sort of like blow up my insecurities into a song and sort of make fun of them. I think that's my way of coping with them. So Gimme, even though it's very lighthearted, it sort of embodies all that in it. And I think Alex could probably speak to the creation of the track.
Yeah, the creation was super fun. We we had the demo that Alex had shared with everybody. And generally, the way that this this is part of a bigger project that we're kind of releasing as we go. But the whole project was, Alex had come to us with this idea, and a ton of demos, and we got to workshop them together and produce them together and really figure out how the band, or how best the band can present all that work. So this one was really fun. We did the solo in there. The synth solo is on a Moog Mother 3, and we would record. We tracked the MIDI, and then we got to play the MIDI back like in an audio signal and manipulate it as we went with the Mother. So you got like the note contour that was happening, but then we also made it so that every time the notes got lower, we would manually increase the vibrato, so it would get like a little crazier as it went down, since we realized it was like kind of like this descending line throughout. So that was really fun to just kind of like build it, figure out what do we need where we can get we have 4 things happening at once, and it's not overwhelming for anybody, but it's like a complete picture. So we really kind of honed in on what the necessary ingredients were for the track, so to speak, and really developed those ingredients into something where we're just like presenting this is the bare minimum but most ideal version of this tune, which I think was really fun. I feel like that's kind of the approach we took with all of the tunes on this project. But I really like how we achieved it with Gimme.
Yeah. And also I'd like to highlight that it's just it's all about the bass, just the bass rhythm. I sort of had that first before having any of the vocals or anything, and it's just ba da 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 nonstop for the entire almost 3 minutes, and the vocals sort of like go with it and then against it at certain points, and that's sort of where the drama is to me. And going into the studio, I really just had the bass line and the vocals, and ironically, because I play guitar and Sean, our bassist, he actually tracked all the guitars for this song. And I think that really brought it together. That really filled in all the spaces and added all these subdivisions and all these subtle rhythms that, like Jenks is saying, it can feel, allowed it to feel open, but in certain ways still filled in the gaps.
Yeah, feels complete without like clouding up your ears almost.
Great. So as artists, there are many different types of artists out there, writers, authors, singers, dancers. But the one thing all artists have in common is that when their job is to leave the house and to walk into a building and display their work. And unfortunately, for almost a year now, they have not been able to do that. So have you done anything to come up with a new way to be artists, or are you sitting back and kind of waiting?
I think we're kind of doing both. I feel like, we kind of realized pretty quickly, like we both have day jobs. And I think both of those day jobs for the first few months of the pandemic were very much about like, oh, Zoom happy hours, Zoom, all this other thing, Zoom bridal showers, all this stuff that we're seeing like in life, just like going on and doing all this stuff over Zoom, which is great. But I think everybody gets fatigued by that. So we were, for a while, we would do like live streams of our rehearsals. We'd go on late, we just like jump on Instagram Live and just like play when we were able to practice, like when we were prepping some of this stuff, and when we were looking at, seeing if we could do virtual shows. And we got that figured out. And, we had some successful shows virtually where people came and they liked it. And like, we got the sound to do it the way we wanted to do it, which was great. But I feel like, and Gaines can correct me if I'm straying too far from the light here, but I think we also realized, I feel like we have to kind of be like more selective about that, because I don't think that's how people want to consume live music. I feel like the way that you like to consume live music is still in a live environment, not necessarily in your living room with your laptop open. I think it's great to see the effort. And I have been really impressed to see the way that people are presenting their art now, especially. But I think we're taking advantage of the fact that we aren't necessarily having to play live so much, because we're in the middle of this release cycle. And as much as we'd love to be able to support it live, we haven't figured out a way for like feasibly for the four of us to do it safely, perpetually. So we're waiting, but trying to figure out where our opportunities can be for something like that.
Yeah, I think that the quarantine, I think we've pivoted multiple times within it. At the first stage, we sort of did those like videos where each of us is in a cell, and we would do those weekly, and we use it as a time to really catch up on our social media and gain new followers, as more people were just nonstop scrolling. And then after a while, we pivoted to the live stream once we were able to meet in person safely. But yeah, like Jenks is saying, I think that now our focus, we've pivoted once more while we're in this weird in-between space of feeling like it could be soon that we're able to play in some way outside or in a space. Before we are sort of expected to do that, we're really doubling down on just recording and building up our own little studio spaces. And hopefully so that if this, God forbid, happens again and we have to be separated for X months at a time, we're able to still produce new music in a way that is still productively like working towards us releasing more and more and more. It really halted our progress in terms of, now we just have a backlog of, like 30 songs we want to record. And probably in another 2 months that will be at 40, So we really want to, I think we've moved from being hungry to perform live to being hungry to just get this backlog of songs out to people. And in the original prompt about artists hanging work up, I think we can hang our work up in two ways, either playing live or just giving new music and sort of in this new model of not actually of just putting it out there, letting people hear, and then keep feeding more and more music directly without these big release cycles and big concerts, you know. I'm babbling a bit, sorry.
No problem.
But for reference to what Gaines was saying, Gimme was supposed to come out, I think, last June.
Yes.
We released it in February. So it, definitely put stuff back a little bit for us.
So did you go somewhere, or do all four of you have your own studios in your homes and you did it that way?
For this one, for this project, we went to Freshly Baked Studios, our good friend Alexander Almgren, a third Alex into the Shiffley mix. It's part of our vetting. Brian's middle name is Alex, so it's all we do. But yeah, we went there to get this all produced. So we tracked everything based on Alex's demos and added things as needed, and he did the mixing, and then we've got it mastered separately with APS mastering. Alex Salt's actually a fourth Alex, now that I think about it. Wow, this is we're not looking good. got a strong pro Alex bias, I guess. But yeah, it's that's what we did with this last one. But we've been sort of slowly building our own home studios so that we can get sort of the demo phase of our tracks closer to being ready to being mixed. So we've been kind of building up in the in the pandemic, just getting things ready to where all four of us can have something respectable for recording.
Gimme was part of this last collection that we actually recorded at Alex Almgren's studio in Freshly Baked for the entire 2019. We did 14 tracks in this collection. We're still deciding how to release it, but it was really a great opportunity. He allowed us to invade his studio 2 nights a week. After work, we'd show up in our work casual or whatever, and we'd just create till like 10, 11 o'clock. And it was great. It was a great experiment. And it was this new collection. It really embodies that 1 year of 2019 for us.
Awesome. So I have one more question for you, somewhat off the subject. And you can answer this in any capacity you want, whether as a group or as a solo act. I'm not trying to break you up. This is all pretend, because you can choose someone who's dead or alive, someone who's known or unknown. But if you had the chance to collaborate or work with any musician, producer, songwriter, composer, who would this person be and why?
That's a good question. I think I would love to be in a studio for a day with either Phoenix or M83, just to understand how they put tracks together, the way that they think. Even if it's not necessarily a collaboration, if I could just be the fanboy in the corner, just like taking notes, I would be ecstatic. I think Total 180, either them or like Tom York from Radiohead, just because I feel like one day in his brain would be all I'd need. It's kind of like looking right into the sun during an eclipse. Like, you don't want to do it for too long, but I feel like I'd learn a lot about writing in that like super niche mathematical kind of space, the way that he seems to be doing with Radiohead and his solo stuff.
Yeah, I second Phoenix. I think that Phoenix in their performance and in what they when they describe themselves as performers, I don't want to put words in their mouth, but they don't call themselves virtuosos at any instrument, but they are good at playing together. They're good at creating and arranging together these simple lines that add up into huge, lush arrangements. And I really look up to them for that. And yeah, I would love to be a fly on the wall in the studio.
Give me a reason, you give me yourself and go.
the time we have for you today on Musical Interlude. I want to thank our guests, Alex Jinks and Alex Russell Gaines of Shiffley, for taking their time to stop on by and share. And of course, audience, as always, thank you so much. Have a great day.